they really ensure that this program can go forth in every facet of their kind of community, in the sense of being a, just like it says, an ambassador. So in a sense, you are kind of the ground roots person, kind of with your ear on the ground, trying to listen to projects that might be coming through the pipeline, listening to the community, seeing if they don't want to do anything specific around your community, as well as gathering the volunteers necessary to kind of roll out these projects, and just being, you know, that ear to the ground. I think that's probably the most important thing in your city. So.
Super. And these ambassadors, as Adele was alluding to, they take on a 12-month commitment where every month they're working towards making significant impact within an organization. So they end up basically adopting a building or an organization that has specific needs around sustainability, and then using this framework to iteratively make changes and help support that space. It all launches with a 2-day training at Convergence, which is our summertime conference, and then Greenbuild, which is our more fall-based conference that you can apply to attend. We'll train you up and get you connected, and then over those 12 months have access to a network of peers that are doing similar work, as well as a network of mentors that we're helping and we're trying to build up to help build these super teams to take on this specific work, which dovetails nicely into the kind of second opportunity, which we'll hear from later today, but our advisor network. And so these are more senior folks in the community that have been around green building for a long time. They've got deep Rolodexes, a lot of contacts, and have some influence in the community that we're working on pairing each of our ambassadors up to really offer kind of the energy and hunger from the young professional, and then connected it to more of the nuanced wisdom and experience of a more senior person in the community to really build some killer teams. And this is and we're still building capacity around this one. Our first investment was a local ambassador. The pipeline advisors will be next, but this is where that more senior person joins forces around a particular project, help advance that project forward. It's a way to gain some continuing education hours by giving back. And it's really ultimately a mentorship program to help transfer knowledge and build up kind of multi-generational teams to take on this type of work. And so for folks interested in local ambassadors, they'll have applications rolling throughout the year. For those folks that want to become advisors, we're working on the infrastructure, and those will be the two kind of major channels around Advance that will be engaging our volunteer network to take on this specific social equity work. What I want to transition to now is to my colleague Ryan, who's going to talk a little bit about the other side of the equation. So we've got our volunteer team that's bringing the expertise and the direction and strategy for a group, but we also have to talk about the project team. So as you adopt a project within the Advance program, you really got to help build an internal team there at that organization to get work done. And Ryan will highlight some strategies that he's learned over time to help get that done.
Excellent. Do you want me to take? Oh, you're handing it over.
Here it comes.
Oh. You know what? I don't think that I have access to. Yeah, so you're gonna have to go back. No problem. You can.
That's right. Okay. Sorry, dude. So let me know when you want to transition.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so put that back up on the screen and we should be good to go. But anyways, while we're kicking it off, Shane and I were just huddling before this and threw some of these slides in there to kind of even out the conversation around building a team, because we talked about building a team of volunteers and what's going on there, but ultimately the purpose of the work that we're doing is to expand the USGBC network and invite new people into it. It's really an effort of creating an inclusive, collaborative environment within USGBC. So inviting people to the table who haven't necessarily been part of the green building conversation but want to get access to resources and want to do stuff in their buildings. So one thing is to create a volunteer team of who can manage it and have that relationship between emerging and seasoned professionals and all of the volunteers. But that's ultimately leading towards building a broader team that is with these new players in the field around their specific projects. So this is a little bit more akin to a project team that you would have if you're doing, say, a design and construction project where you're trying to deliver something at the end of that. So really, we wanted to introduce this to you mostly because there's an opportunity here to build really good, solid teams and build them early and follow an integrative process, which is so key to delivering good green projects. And so this integrative team, really the idea there is to get people together from the get-go to set goals and establish who's responsible for what, get those clear commitments, and then assess that strategy and how you're going to implement those actions moving forward. So some of the cases it will be done by the internal team of whoever manages that organization, and some of it will need to bring additional resources to the table. That might be actual volunteers. That might be they might need to bring in a service provider of some sort to accomplish certain things. And actually, you can go back to the earlier one. It could be another not-for-profit organization that has some type of service or whatever. So the idea there of the volunteers is to help them to clarify their goals, identify the strategies, connect into the broader green building network, and find good solutions for what they need for their strategy. So ultimately, you're starting conversations now with organizations and establishing relationships with them. Then you do your Kickstart activity, and then that goes into the Plan Builder. So this is kind of a preview for what happens as you get into Plan Builder, which really sets the stage for those actions. So you can go to the next slide. The idea here is ultimately to create a integrative team so that you can work together with the organization and deepen your understanding of the needs of that organization, the assets, and maybe some of the limitations that they have, but most importantly, understand who that organization is, who the people are that space or that building is serving, and how does that all relate to the activities that are going to happen in that space from a greening perspective. We really want to take the integrative process, which looks holistically at this project. It's not just an exercise in energy efficiency or an exercise in green building, but looking even broader beyond that of what is the mission of the organization and how can the building and the activities in that building help them to achieve their goals. So this gives us an opportunity to step away from the checklist of LEED or any of the rating systems and get away from a linear approach and look much more holistically at the needs of that organization and how can what happens in that space help them to do what they're doing. We bring tools for analysis and decision making to the table and help them to identify good solutions, and then ultimately, because many of these organizations that we're working with are strapped for cash or time or other resources, trying to find simple measures that can check off multiple kind of goals or strategies. I call it stacking functions, which is an old permaculture term, but this ability to get multiple benefits from single actions so that you can really deliver the most to them. Next slide. So when you're looking at developing that team and reaching out to the organization, we've experienced this in working with some of the groups is there might be one person who is interested in doing something with their space. But really, it takes a village to make things happen. So you want to look at decision makers and supporters and the different expertise that's at the table. And this ties back to the volunteers that you bring to the table as well. So you want to have people that not only are passionate but also have the authority to make some decisions, and that they have all different types of skills, whether it's project management or specific technical skills, so that you can really think holistically through that project. So look at who the partner organization that you're working with. what types of skills or expertise do they have at the table? Maybe they can manage the project, but they need technical expertise. So then you would want to bring additional volunteers or partners to the table to support them from that side. So really understanding who you have at the table and trying to round that out. Next slide, Shane. So the idea here is that this group of people are all around the table together, starting early. I think the first few phases of the advance kind of framework with start and plan, there's not a lot of tangible actions that happen. This is very much about exploration. It's very much about setting goals and whatnot. So having all of those folks at the table early on and getting their buy-in and their support to set these goals, make sure, and once they buy in, it helps to make sure that those strategies are actually implemented because they feel ownership to it. Next. Yeah, so ultimately when you're working with a team, you want to make sure that individuals are clear on what's expected, and everybody knows, what their marching orders are essentially for that next step. So the idea here is that somebody, if there's an action or a next step that needs to happen, that you have somebody who understands exactly what that is, and the person who's responsible or the team that's responsible for it knows when it's due and who's going to do it. So this way you're able to manage the project. And I think that most of the folks in our world understand project management, and this is really nothing more than that. But it becomes a very different situation when you're doing it as a volunteer for an organization, and holding accountability can be a little bit trickier. So the more clear that everybody is about what those next steps are is extremely important so that we can hold each other accountable on a team to make sure that we are making progress and moving towards taking those actions and moving the dial. Next. I don't know what's next, so I think it's still me. I can talk to anything. So,
this is the last slide.
Yeah, this is the last slide. Okay, so just to wrap up what we've talked about so far is there's the volunteer team, which really from our perspective, that's the green building folks. That's our emerging and our seasoned professionals, people who understand sustainability and have expertise, they're subject matter experts, that we're bringing them together to support other organizations. Together they build a project team, which are decision makers within the organization, whether it could be the executive director, it could be the pastor of the church, it could be the president of the board, people that make decisions on that side, as well as the supporters. Oftentimes those are the people who are going to be doing the work or who want to see change happen. So you need to have both of those from the organization, as well as people that bring resources and expertise to the table. So we wanted to round out the conversation of building a team so that we really start to understand who's needed and what types of folks are needed to be at that table as we build teams. So Shane, I'll pass it back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ryan. And so we were trying to give you kind of perspective from our angle of what we're seeing in the network and how we see some success evolving. But I think what's going to really drive these ideas home is to hear from our community that's actually doing this work on the ground. So I first want to introduce Frank Sherman. He's a longtime USBC volunteer who's taken on an advisor role for an advanced project in Philadelphia with ActionAID. And we are excited to hear from him on kind of his journey as becoming a mentor to Maggie, one of our ambassadors out there, as well as what he's learned in building internal teams at the ActionAID organization. So Frank, please take it away.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. So I'll just add a few words kind of from a more personal perspective based on the project that Maggie and I have started working on in Philadelphia. We are working for an organization called ActionAID, which happens to be an organization I've been volunteering with for a number of years. So it's very near and dear to my heart to bring together two organizations that I know and really try to do something special for both of them. So let me talk a little bit about the mentorship, the building the volunteer team. What became clear to me after I started getting involved with Advance and starting to listen to some of the early calls that you folks were having was that there seemed to be a little bit of frustration at times about some of the ambassadors not really being able to get doors open and to find the kinds of projects they wanted to work with. They had the knowledge, the skills. The ambassadors have great passion, and they are absolutely the right people to be at the table to talk about the program and to really promote the program. But sometimes it is hard to get to the table in your community. And it struck me very quickly that I was able to very easily knock on doors and to get appointments with people, either because I have relationships with organizations or I have the kinds of relationships built up over years of working within the community that I could get the ambassador to the table. And because I was interested in the project as well, Maggie and I were a very effective team to be able to talk about Advance and to talk about why this might be good for organizations. So the idea of having a seasoned advisor working in tandem with an ambassador, I think, really allows you to now strategically target organizations within your community that you might, who really would benefit from the program, and find ways to really get in front of them. So that, I think, first and foremost, is a great reason to find those kinds of advisors. And the advisors, as the way I envision it within USGBC, there's still many people who picked up the torch back in the early years, the early 2000s for USGBC, helped to grow the chapter communities, helped to grow the USGBC community. These people are still carrying that torch within their communities, and these are the advisors that if you could identify them in where you live and in the areas around where you live and work, these people will have invaluable both insights and connections that I think will help you get projects going. The other part about mentorship I just will quickly talk about is the fact that I've been doing this for a long time. A lot of people that I know have been working in this space for a long time. And, you know, over time you just learn things. You learn sort of the pitfalls. You learn what has been successful in promoting sustainability, in promoting LEED, working with LEED, working with teams, understanding how people react to certain approaches. I am more than happy to share that with folks, to share my experience. It's personally rewarding, and it's something that I think that I should be passing on anyways. So the idea that advisors can be mentors to young professionals, I think, is just a natural fit. We have a lot of wisdom and battle scars to share that will help young professionals be more successful more quickly at what they are doing, and that is the whole point of the uptake of the USGBC community, to have impact faster, quicker. So the mentorship role, and I will say that everything that I read about the relationship between senior seasoned professionals and young professionals, or if in more general terms the literature will refer to them as millennials, mentorship is kind of a natural fit. And young professionals are out there seeking many mentors for all the various things they are interested in, and it's a very symbiotic relationship. So the idea of mentorship is just, I think, very natural here in the Advance program, and a way to really pass on information and wisdom that we have learned within this movement over the past 15, 20 years, pass it on to the next generation who, in fact, will be the leaders of USGBC in the future. And the last thing I will just quickly talk about is in Green Team, and this is just based on my experience. ActionAIDS is full of very passionate people who are very passionate providing social services for their clients. And so they were excited and passionate about the idea of sustainability. Had no place to start in other than perhaps some of their personal understanding of sustainability. So what I actually saw was necessary for us was to really go in and help organize within the organization the people who we're going to we need to empower to make our advanced projects successful. And part of the notion of good community engagement is simply the fact that ideally this project needs to come from the community for which we are serving. So the folks at ActionAID, I'm continually asking them to tell me exactly what it is they want this project to be. And in order for me to get that answer from them, I find I'm continually having to help them self-organize, providing them with some background understanding, some frame of reference, so that they can start making those critical decisions that are really ultimately going to become the sustainability plan that will inform the plan builder later in this project. We are at a point where we are doing data collection. In some respects, I can't keep up with this green team because they are just roaring in certain directions. But what I'm trying to do is to really give them a little bit of perspective, slow them down to be a little bit more methodical, and at the same time continue to empower them to be really the engines for this whole project. So it's not going to be a outside expert-driven experience. It's going to be a project that is theirs. And I have told them from the very beginning my goal is that the green team that we are creating for Advance is going to far outlive my involvement as an Advance team member with this organization, that the green team needs to be a legacy within the organization that exists for the next 10, 20 years. So we have to set this thing up right because they've got many, many years to work on the sustainability of their organization. Enough said.
Beautiful. Frank, thank you for your wisdom and for helping shape the program so far. We have a lot of ambassadors on the line. How do we find more folks like you? We've got folks, we've got ambassadors all over the country. Do you have any tips for the emerging professionals on the line on how they can either get in front of folks like you or make the ask or a preferred medium? How do our guys make the pitch to find an advisor?
Well, I think Maggie actually did something very interesting. So for the Kickstart, she brought folks from within her organization. So she's with Gilbane, and they have a pretty strong presence here in the Philadelphia area. So she found not only we had two volunteers work with us. So one was, in fact, a seasoned professional within Gilbane who didn't have a lot of past experience working within the USGBC community, but had many years of kind of green building and just managerial expertise. And she brought in a very young new member of the Gilbane team who just has a lot of passion and wants to learn. So I would say look within your organization, look within, sort of the adjacent professional green building community that you know of, whether it is through a local USGBC chapter or through the local AIA, and just look for those people who just seem passionate, and then ask them. I firmly believe that there are many people like me who really want to work on something impactful and will give their time and give their effort if they are asked. But, shy of the sort of formal apply for a position or soliciting interest and all those sort of formal structures, the best thing to do is just to get out there and don't be afraid to ask someone to become passionate with you.
Excellent. So we'll transition now to another speaker, but Frank will stay on the line, and we can ask some more questions at the end, guys, if we got some stuff burning. But I want to introduce Tyler Walter from Washington, D.C. He's not officially an ambassador, but he is an emerging professional here in D.C. that is a friend and one of the leads for our Calvary Women's Shelter project here in the district. And I'd really like him to share how he's been able to leverage the committee within the chapter to take on advanced style work. So Tyler, would you share some insights with us?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. Just had a few questions that some people were asking prior to this call, so I could go through those, or just sort of give an overview of where our project is and some of the successes and failures that we've had along the way. But if you're familiar with the Calvary Advanced project, which we have introduced to all the emerging professionals about 9 months ago now. The project has been ongoing, so we've had some challenges maintaining leadership and maintaining interest, and just really trying to carry our enthusiasm from the people that are sort of the managers of the project or those that have started the effort, carry that enthusiasm down through professionals. And that's probably one of our biggest challenges is so far. And the way we can do that is just continue to show our passion, as many people have already mentioned here. Sure, Frank, I appreciate you saying that, because it's one of the things that you really have to do as an ambassador and as a leader of the project. And if you can be passionate and you can be enthusiastic and just show that through your the way you communicate the project and through your body language, and I think that really helps push the project forward and make a successful project in the end.
So Tyler, structurally, how was it shaken out? Did you have some leaders emerge that took on particular components of the project? Are you more of a manager? Describe kind of how you've been able to leverage the volunteers from the committee to take on particular tasks.
So in the beginning, it was really about just creating that vision, both graphically and narratively, working with the organization, and then starting to develop the story. And at the first meeting that we had, we proposed that vision to people, and basically gave them not necessarily a choice, but it was to sort of gain knowledge from our side of things on where the group was, what their skill sets were, what their knowledge was, and form teams. And some of the teams that we had formed for the Advanced Calvary project was an exterior team. We also had an interior team. We had folks that were interested in communications and fundraising efforts, and then also educational team where they were able to start looking at some ways that we could educate the organization and those people there on what sustainability was from a basic level all the way up to something more specific, which we haven't quite got to yet, but maybe even logging energy data and providing a kiosk that people in the building could use to see what energy savings they had and so on. And
kind of pragmatically, one of the other tools that you use is that the emerging professionals here in DC get together at least once a month for kind of a general check-in meeting. And then what you did was to latch on an advanced meeting after that to kind of be able to offer an easy opportunity for any new EPs to join that larger conversation, and to also to get the updates in a much more longer form scenario. Is that a strategy you recommend to folks that want to loop in their EP group?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the monthly meetings where it brings all of those teams together to give a sort of quick update and synopsis of where they are, review some of their successes, some of their failures, and where they are in terms of the scope of work items, basically updating on their progress. And that gives a good opportunity to sort of reach out to the network base within the group itself, to everyone, to see if there are others that can provide assistance and so on. And then we've been encouraging biweekly meetings for the individual groups, for the teams, for them to get together internally, socialize, or to talk about the group, and just sort of gain a less formal relationship, and talk about the internal group goals and see if things are being followed through with, those commitments that were previously talked about are being carried out, and develop internal strategies within the groups. And then, some of the higher level management, myself included, and USGBC board member and others, we talk on a weekly or sometimes daily basis to discuss sort of the schedule, some of the bigger picture items, action items, things that we need to send out to the groups. We review the overall progress, and again, just sort of make sure that things are being followed through with in a timely manner and keep things moving forward.
Last question here. Are any specific tools that you're using, or is it primarily email? Any ways to make that process you found to be more efficient or expedient?
Yeah, emails, of course, that's good. I'm somewhat old school, even though I'm young. I love picking up the phone and just calling someone and talking to them on the phone. It sounds very rudimentary, but believe me, it works and it's helpful. Mm-hmm. We also do some go-to meetings, or like Skype meetings, these WebEx meetings for the individual group discussions. And then when we're at some of the larger meetings, PowerPoint presentations just show some of the imagery or PDFs of successes and progress. I think that's all very useful.
Absolutely. And one thing that I got the pleasure of joining, they had a kind of a mid-advanced project service day, and it's just where we went out and were able to serve food to the women that are housed in the shelter. And I think those kind of engagements with the actual residents or the people using these spaces is a way to either continue humanizing the project, but then also providing kind of that personal narrative and getting attached to the effort. So I thought it was a cool thing that they've done here locally to keep people motivated and stay involved. Well, awesome. Thanks so much, Tyler. It was really cool to hear from your perspective on how you've been able to organize things and push things forward. But now I want to transition to our last presenter, Kathleen Kirkpatrick from USGBC Alabama. So Kathleen is on staff, one of our local representatives down there in Alabama, and she's been working awesomely with one of our ambassador, Felicia, down there, and really wanted to highlight this relationship to show how deeply a chapter can get involved, or how deeply local staff can get involved to help move advanced work at a local level. So Kathleen, I'll turn it over for you for kind of perspectives from your side of the world.
Sure. Thanks, Shane. And unfortunately, Felicia wasn't able to be here today, so I kind of jumped in at the last moment. But I think I'll just build on something that Tyler was saying, that really it's great to just pick up the phone and have a conversation. Goes a long way. And maintaining those lines of communication and making yourself available both on the ambassador side as well as the advisor side makes a big, big difference, just knowing that you've got somebody to reach out to. And we frequently just hop on the phone or chat to catch up with one another and see how things are going. I will say that in Alabama, we're fairly new to this, so we don't really have an ongoing established project that's underway. We're really just getting started. And when Felicia and I were talking about how did we get to know each other, how did we know that this was going to work, it really clicked pretty quickly. I had been on the lookout for somebody that I thought would be good for the advanced program, and then, lo and behold, met Felicia, and it became clear pretty quickly that she was a good fit just based on her interests and the sort of questions that she asked about, what is USGDC and how do green buildings really play into the larger sustainability picture. She was very engaged in the community. So when we spoke this morning, it's like, how do you know this is going to work? And really, it's about the open communication, keeping your eyes and ears open for opportunities, both for people who can be a part of the team in any number of capacities, and keeping an eye out for projects that maybe are already underway, and knowing what's going on in your community. I think Frank said it very well, too. I mean, those of us that have either been in the community as professionals a bit longer or just have more experience, maybe know where to look, and it's easier for us to branch out into our networks and make those connections. A lot of times I feel like a matchmaker between projects and individuals. But I would say, as far as looking for the ones that are going to be successful, looking for areas of mutual benefit, getting the buy-in from the project side, from a partner organization, can be challenging sometimes because we're all busy and we want to make sure that it's a good fit. So just being open-minded, asking those questions, but looking for the signs that you will recognize for success, those good opportunities. One of the things that Felicia had suggested I bring up, and I just had to write this down so I could quote it, is like, know who we are, know who we know, and what we want to do. And Shane and Ryan have made a very good description there about this larger concept of community engagement for the U.S. Green Building Council. Just one other comment. I believe Frank had brought this up too, but do please reach out to your local board of directors or market leadership advisory board, and especially to your USGBC staff in your community, because we probably know some folks who maybe have served as volunteers on our boards. They're looking for some new opportunities. They've been around the block a few times, but they may not be the first people you meet at a meeting. So we can help you dive into that background and pull in the folks that can really help to be your advisors. And if they're not advisors themselves, they can make really good referrals.
This is Frank, and I'll just quickly add, I think that one of the important roles for advisors is going to be that they are there to support the ambassadors. And in many ways, I think the best thing that advisors can do in terms of mentorship is to stand at the side of the young professionals and let them exercise their leadership skills. I don't see that. My role is not to try to lead the project. My role is to support the success of the project.
Beautiful.
Well said.
And to that end, Kathleen, in your particular relationship with Felicia, have you kind of really delineated who's doing what when it comes to project outreach and kind of how you're starting to build relationships? Is one person kind of doing the kind of inbound and then the sell, or any perspective there on ways to structure responsibility at this point?
I think it really depends on the project that you're pursuing. As I said, we're not really very far into the process, and so it's not as clearly defined, and all the more reason for us to stay in pretty close touch. I was able to make some suggestions to Felicia early on about some potential project partners because she was just getting involved with USGBC. So it wasn't like she was already part of the network like some of our emerging professionals are. But I really wanted her to run with it. And I actually happen to physically live and work primarily in a different location. So she's the local community person. She's definitely the lead, and she's made some terrific contacts, but is really reliable about checking in with me, not for permission or anything, but just to bounce around ideas and help make sure that we're on track.
Super. Well, I'm incredibly grateful for folks, the three folks that were able to share some perspectives from the ground. But I did want to turn it over in our kind of waning minutes here. If any other folks in the network have had an example that would be worthwhile sharing with the group, whether it was a successful mentorship match or maybe one that didn't quite work out. So there's a time if anyone in the community has additional perspective to provide on this. All right. Well, I can't wait to see all the reports from you guys this month. It sounds like it's been hopefully a successful one. I know personally, I've always struggled a bit with mentorship, primarily because I think I'm right all the time. So it's not definitely not an easy thing, but it's something that we continue to find it invaluable, and from the advanced perspective, the programs or the efforts that have had an ambassador matched with a strong advisor continue to be our most strongest examples, and so it will continue being an emphasis for the program and a perspective that we really hope that you guys take on and add to your repertoire as you take on this particular work. And so, our ask of ambassadors this month is to make that ask and reach out. And so, things that we would like you to consider or work on over the next couple of weeks is to create that small list or that short list of groups that you're interested in getting advisorship from. And either reaching out to them yourself, getting an intro from your local community staff. Ryan and I also can play matchmaker up here as well, and are more than happy to do so and do some research to make some matches. Do not hesitate to do that. Also think about what's your pitch. As Frank alluded to, there's just a lot of good people in our UHBC community that are ready to take on this type of work, and so maybe spend a little bit of time on crafting that email and figure out what's important to that individual. But there's going to be a lot of folks that it's safe to assume that want to support you in this work. And then also to get back to kind of our larger point, it's not just the volunteer side of things that's important to advance, but also getting this project team bought in. So thinking about how, and some we're going to continue investing and figuring out more, but how do you change the message of Advance to fit with that project team? How do you organize them internally well? And to kind of this larger idea that Frank was talking about was, once we're done, once UHBC is done with that project, how do we ensure that that green team is strong and successful and continue this work moving forward? So as we kind of wind down here, any other further questions or reflections that you guys have of either our guests today or from the team here at USGBC?
Shane, I want to ask anybody if, I know that particularly the three examples that were given here, there was a team of people, or at least whether it's a team of two or a team of a few more, that did work together. Is anybody else currently, I know Jasmine, you've been doing some work in North Carolina, and other folks have gotten some projects off the ground. Is everybody doing them alone, or have you been able to bring others along into that, whether it's from the local USGBC or another association or your friends? Maybe we can get a raise of hands.
Hi there, it's Jasmine here. We are actually very lucky. I see Jessica Wilson is on the call. So our EPs have had support from Jessica, and we're extremely grateful for that, because we find that, of course, our USGBC staff have connections that we wouldn't otherwise have access to. So we have that support, and then we have another VLG member who we are working with, who also has connections and is willing to reach out to them. So we want to host an event for Earth Day, and we're hoping to pull in as many member organizations as possible and get those expert professionals involved. So, I think I echo a lot of other comments here. Try and get USGBC staff involved and members involved, because they probably have contacts, they have access to contacts that some of your younger professionals wouldn't have access to.
Excellent. One thing to suggest for you guys too, particularly those that are working in territories that have merged with USGBC, we're always looking for content, and particularly local content. So if you have a project or you have an initiative that's coming up and you need people to get engaged, write a compelling article about it for usgbc.org and tell us, who is it that you're working with, what is it that you hope to do, and do that pitch and say, hey, you want to get involved? We need X, Y, Z. And Shane or I can help you guys with the messaging on that, or even helping to define what those volunteer roles are. But putting it out there over the channels that we have or social media or whatnot is extremely, I think, an effective way, because then it gives you something to point to get other people engaged.
Hey, it's Kathleen. I'll jump in here quickly just to say that, there's so many things that you can do with this framework of advance, and don't feel like you have to take on a huge project. There's a lot of very interesting and rewarding work to be done out there, and don't be afraid to start small and define a project in a way that you can accomplish even if you don't have 30 volunteers, because those opportunities are definitely out there.
Great point.
All right, guys. Well, for the ambassadors on the call that have opted into our Year of Advancement calendar, your action this month is to confirm at least one senior advisor to join your project team and to connect with your local community/chapter to inform them of the work that you're working on and to hopefully leverage that network to support your project as well. And so as you fill out your reports this month, be sure to include some updates on that front. But for the good of the call and folks on, I appreciate you tuning in. This has all been recorded and will be disseminated through the Ambassador Network, and then I'll also be reposting this against the original article that we wrote around Frank and Maggie's work that we'll also publish as well. And I'm also working on aggregating all these calls and all of these articles into one larger stream. So at any point, if you need a refresher or you want to check in or share this particular topic, you'll have that at your disposal. And so I think we'll be signing off here. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and keep advancing, guys. Thanks much.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Shane. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.